And we are live. Good Thursday evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're hearing me well and hearing me live. My name is Rick Senninger. I am the founder of Tip Hypnosis, or Transforming Individual Performance. If we've never met before, that's great. Then welcome. I welcome you. So, what I wanted to share with you this evening is three things. Number one, this is the first of 12 different series that I'm going to be doing with you live on YouTube. You're invited to ask your questions. The name of the show is One Conversation at a Time. In order to have a conversation, it has to include you as well. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing, is including you in our conversations. You can ask us questions. Now I'm going to give you a phone number to be able to go ahead and text me your questions. You text them to 407 490 5022. Again, that number is 407 490 5022. Now, tonight, we're going to be talking about anxiety. But as I mentioned, this is part of 12 different presentations, Q&As that I'm going to be hosting here on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. And the reason for this, the reason we're doing 12 and so on, there is an arc to this. So you can't, each one of these conversations will be a standalone, but at the same time, if you were to watch all 12 of them, and they will be left up permanently for you to be able to do that, you're going to see that this is a method that I've developed in how you make real change, real transformation in your life. And no, it's not based upon the 12 steps or Bill, the book of Bill. Okay. Just to let you know, for those out there that are interested. All right. So, what we're going to talk about today is going to be anxiety, because everybody has it. Anxiety is a universal thing. I don't care culture, religion, age group, demographic, identification, how you identify yourself. Does not matter. If you're a mammal, you have some level of anxiety. And in order to understand anxiety, you've got to go back to the very, very basics. And that is, you have to go down to fight, flight, or freeze. Anxiety is oftentimes facilitated by our fundamental need of protection, safety, what's acceptable to us, what's acceptable within our culture, how we're identified, how we live our lives. Okay. So from that reason, anxiety is around us all the time. And many times anxiety is healthy and normal and should be. For example, if I'm speaking with somebody else in English, I have absolutely no problem. You want to see have anxiety? When somebody starts speaking Russian to me, I have no idea what they're saying. Okay, I'm trying really, really hard. I'm concentrating. I'm starting to actually feel a little uncomfortable, so on. That is a little bit of anxiety, and that's normal. If you get too close to a stove, and you start to feel the heat from it and you step back a little bit, that's normal anxiety. That's a protection. That's what's supposed to happen. That's part of the fight or flight. Someone who doesn't have any anxiety at all, oh my gosh, they would be willing to do anything. They would have absolutely no anticipation of anything ever going wrong. They would just they jump off a cliff without a parachute, without anything. They just go, okay, yeah, well, I have no anxiety about this. Sure, I'll just jump off. It would totally mess you up. So anxiety is actually a good thing. Now, let's go to the other side of the coin. Let's go way to the other end of the spectrum. Let's go with anxiety to a point to where it is detrimental to you. You're not able to actually have a fulfilling life because of your anxiety. Maybe a anxiety to the point of having a panic attack. Someone who won't go to, I don't know, any sporting events. They won't even go to their kids' sporting events. They won't ever see their kids participate in things because they don't want to leave the house, or they get anxious about a crowd. Or now this is having an impact then at that point on not just them, but on their children as well, or other members of the family, as that may be. Maybe it's not your children, maybe it's your nieces, your nephews, maybe it's just other people that would like to have family events, and you're just always trying to figure out a way to get out of those family events. That is, well, other than the obvious reasons. Have you met some of my family members? Okay. Anyway, but aside from my family members, is that yes, we all experience anxiety, and sometimes in good anxiety, and anxiety that's not so good. So where does the fight and flight thing come in? Well, I mentioned to you about, I don't know, about getting too close to a stove, maybe getting, too close to the edge of a high cliff may cause you a certain amount of anxiety, trepidation. You want to step back from that. Other times that anxiety can be very healthy and actually very, very normal is when your anxiety will also create a body manifestation. I mean, you'll actually, that mind body connection, anxiety is a perfect example. People who are unsure about a mind body connection, let me clear it up for you real fast. Okay. And that is if you're standing in front of a large group of people and you're going to be giving a speech and you feel a little bit anxious, you shouldn't be terribly surprised if get a little shortness of breath, or maybe your palms start feeling a little sweaty, or maybe that's normal. Okay. And that's that mind body connection of where anxiety and feeling uncomfortable because you're moving outside of your comfort zone. Now, going back to fight, flight. Let's talk about that for just a minute. When you're talking about your fight or flight, you're also talking about those things with which you are comfortable and how you perceive them. So that's, your need for security, your need to feel comfortable, your need to be around those things that you are familiar to you. That's where you're going to feel safe. Therefore, your anxiety level, when you're in your safe zone, is very, very low. Moving outside of your safe zone, that your anxiety will increase. The more foreign something is to you, or the more that maybe you've been programmed to be very afraid of certain things, then your anxiety will go up. Sometimes even your behaviors can be formed by your fight or flight and the anxiety involved in that. I'll give you a perfect example. Dad always comes home from work every single night. He's had a couple of beers and he's not in a very good mood. However, his daughter turns around and brings him a little piece of chocolate every time she sees him. And his son always brings him over a newspaper. So even though he hits the door feeling a little bit grumpy and maybe not, I had a couple of beers with the boys, when he gets home, he gets treated like a king. And at that point, his frustration comes down and the kids feel safe. Dad's no longer upset. And we just made a great correlation. Chocolate and a newspaper, bringing that to dad makes him happy. So giving people food, giving them chocolates, giving them rewards, if they're not doing very well or they're feeling grumpy or we're being threatened in some way, shape, or form, giving people what they would like. People pleasing is something that can come out of anxiety because of fight or flight. Now, I'm telling you all of this for a very, very specific reason because I'm going to be sharing some additional information with you. And in doing so, really try and spur this conversation about fight, flight, freeze, and at the same time, feeling that and understanding how that correlates to anxiety. That so much of it has to do with your interpretation. Because now here comes an entirely different piece, and then I'm going to start taking some questions. Did you know that your brain and your body respond exactly the same way, whether it's negative anxiety, something making you feel terribly anxious, or whether or not you perceive it as being excitement? You're thrilled to do something. Your brain's firing off the same way. Your nervous system is reacting the same way. A benign action or a benign influence, something that has no feeling, it's just something, it's a fact. is actually interpreted by your interpreted by your experiences, your fight or flight, how you perceive things, and then your reaction will be either anxiousness and very reserved and very nervous, or you'll be very excited and you'll be smiling from ear to ear. In some cases, almost manic. Okay. How does that happen? Well, let's just use a little scenario that I created. It's totally artificial. But let's just say we have two 10-year-old twin boys. And these twin boys are getting on a plane and they're going to be going to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. You can tell I'm from Orlando. That was a cheap pitch. Anyway, so they're coming to Orlando, they're coming to Disney World. One is saying, "Oh, I'm so excited. We get to go on a plane. We get to go to Disney World. It's going to be great." The other one's looking at mom and dad and going, "I don't like this. I've never been on a plane before. I don't like it." And yeah, does he have like a lot of crowds or stuff? Because you know how I don't like crowds and things like that. That makes me very, very anxious and so on. And so the thing is, the point is the stimulus. What's facilitating it is something very benign. The plane is not, the plane has no feelings. The plane's a piece of machinery. It's mechanical. One young man's interpretation is, "Oh my gosh, we get to go on a plane." The other one is like, "I really am uncomfortable being on this plane." The other one is going, "Oh, good, I get to go to Disney." The other one's like going, "Are there a lot of people? I don't like being around a lot of people. It makes me very, very anxious, maybe very, very nervous." Disney has no feelings. It can facilitate, it's an environment. It can facilitate, it's meant to evoke certain emotions. And quite frankly, they go to great strengths to lengths to make sure that it's a positive one. But nonetheless, balloons are benign. Painted streets and costumes and so on are benign. They have no feelings. It doesn't matter one way or the other. So it's entirely your interpretation as to whether or not you perceive something as being exciting or whether you perceive something as being threatening. Now, sometimes it's very, very clear, someone's coming at you in an aggressive way. That's going to be probably threatening. Um, but when it comes to things like taking a plane ride, that the airplane has no feelings. Okay. So just understand exactly what we're talking about here. By the way, if you haven't noticed, I'm using a lot of basic approaches because this video is designed to reach a wide audience. And if you're just coming into the live right now, let me just say this to you is that my name is Rick Senninger. I am the founder of TIP Hypnosis or Transforming Individual Performance. I also facilitated what's called the PIT method. And it's PIT, which by the way is exactly opposite of TIP, TIP. And it stands for practicing intelligent, inspirational, or intuitive thinking. PIT. There's actually three I's: intellectual thinking, intuitive thinking, inspirational thinking. And let me share with you where that comes from. Whether you realize it or not, you're going through a thought process with most things through all of those lenses. Which one's dominant at that moment is depends upon the circumstance. But everybody that makes a decision about whatever it is you're doing, they do it first, they do it intellectually. Does this make sense? Does it follow rules? Are there guidelines? Is it inspired? Okay. Am I inspired to do something? Am I motivated to do something a certain way? And then there's, of course, they're intuitive. Does it feel right to me? And that question we ask ourselves all the time. All three of those questions we ask ourselves all the time in pretty much every decision. Let me give you a perfect example of this. You're pulling up to a street, a traffic light, and you see it go from yellow to red, and you make the decision to go ahead and put your brakes on and come to a stop. That was done intellectually. Okay, red light. Okay, time to stop. it was also being done intuitively. You're motivated because you don't want to get in a car accident by rushing through a light or get a ticket. And it also felt right to you. So it's inspired and it's intuitive. Okay, you're getting all three of those. In other words, it's logical, it's intellectual, it's inspired, and being motivated, and at the same time, it feels right. It's intuitive. So for that reason, you came to a stop and all goes well. Now, that's just one example. And again, it can be done in different orders. It doesn't have to be that the logical is always in control. It doesn't mean that the intuitive is always in control. It doesn't mean that the inspired is always in control. But you will look at all of your questions in life through those different lenses. Okay. Now, having said all that, wait a second. I see Deanna's turned around. She's put something in the chat for me. Okay. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. When it comes to fight or flight, this also has to do with how secure people will feel. And that's a really important point to make, Deanna, and I appreciate you doing that because when it comes to people feeling safe, if you want to get to understand something about someone, doesn't matter who the someone is, maybe it's somebody you work with, maybe it's a member of your family, you just can't figure out why it is you can't get close with this person. Maybe it's, someone that you've met and everybody else loves them and you're trying to figure out what it is about them that you're just not getting that maybe other people are getting. Or maybe the opposite. It could very well be too that you just think this person just you met somebody and oh my gosh, immediate connection. You turn around and just totally are you just get each other, right? If you want to understand somebody, find out what their likes are and their dislikes are. Find out what causes them anxiety. If they, just ask them, like, do you ever go to concerts, right? Oh, no, no, I don't go to concerts. I don't like it. It gets, I get really upset when it comes to big crowds. Okay, great. Um, what kinds of things do you do for entertainment? Well, mostly I stay home. And yeah, so by asking these types of questions, what you're getting is you're getting an insight into this person's security, understand, secure with themselves, confidence levels, and where they feel safe and what's a priority to them. And that will give you some type of insight. It's not a perfect system, but it gives you a insight about someone and about their fight or flight and what a little bit about what they're about. It even tells you a little bit about their childhood, okay, how they were probably raised. So it's very, very, very important. And I am starting off with the basic of the fight, flight, or your security systems and moving into anxiety. Because as we're moving through each of these different steps on how you make a real change in your life, a lasting change in your life, then this is giving you some type of an insight as to how exactly this goes. So we're starting off with this tonight, and I'm again open to any and all questions. If you want to, you can always text me your questions. I gave you the number before. Let me give it to you again. It's text me at 407 490 5022, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Ah, Elizabeth. Yes, Elizabeth Brazier. By the way, if I haven't told you about Elizabeth Brazier, let me tell you about her. She is a colleague of mine. She specializes with ADHD. We actually did a paper together, a very, very short, just a quick study on ADHD, and she is absolutely brilliant when it comes to this. So, if you ever have a need for anything regarding ADHD, don't hesitate to give me a call and I will put you in touch with Elizabeth. She's a fantastic person. So she was asking me just now about people with ADHD and fight or flight, right? So people that have different diagnoses, and I'm going to use that, be very, very specific about this. Don't make an assumption that you can make a diagnosis. Okay. Leave that to somebody who's prepared and does diagnoses. I do not do diagnoses. I, in fact, work with psychologists and psychiatrists that if I have a question and someone needs an evaluation, I will get it from a professional who can tell me whether we've got a real diagnosis or we just have a symptom. Remember, something a sniffle is just a sniffle, okay? Until you find out it's something else. It's just a sniffle, okay? Um, In this case, what we're talking about is we're talking about someone that's diagnosed with ADHD, because what they're doing is people, my clients have ADHD, say they have superpowers. They're able to ascertain and move around a room and sense many, many different things simultaneously. They're also able to recognize fight or flight very, very quickly because they're constantly evaluating a room. They have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And what that is doing is it's allowing them to be able to gather a lot of information very, very, very quickly. So if you're out with some friends or something, you find out that somebody has ADHD and they're able like to pick up on the fact that something doesn't feel quite right, it doesn't seem quite right. That's their little spidey senses going off. That's protection, fight or flight, and it will create a certain amount of anxiety very quickly. They are usually right more often than not, and they're picking up on things that they can see and feel. They may not be able to identify why they can see or feel it, but they actually can. So that's something else too with people that have high anxiety. Now, moving forward here, I want to also talk about how people are able, by today's standards, we're learning more and more and more about anxiety. Because it's universal. Everyone has it. There's good, as we mentioned before, there's good anxiety, and there's anxiety that actually precludes you from being able to move forward and having a healthy, full life. So, having said all of that, let's now move forward as to how to best engage or work with your anxiety. Notice what I said, work with. You don't fight with it. Fighting with anxiety is a fool's errand. Fool's errand, meaning you'll never get a resolution to it. You cannot fight and win against anxiety. Everybody has it. That's number one. Number two, the longer you fight with something, the longer it goes on. So the approach now is to allow anxiety to simply flow through you, acknowledging when it's coming forward. So you feel it coming through. Remember the three I's: intuitive, inspirational, intellectual? Okay. So you're feeling it coming forward. Intellectually, you need to recognize that if you fight it, you're going to be dealing with it for a longer period of time, as in like longer on the clock. If you will simply allow it to go through you, which is tough because you want to fight it, something's attacking your nervous system or something's making you feel really, really anxious. If you would simply just close your eyes for just a moment, for just a few seconds, and let it peek out and go through, maybe take a couple of deep breaths while you're doing that, which does in fact work. We'll get into the reasons for why another time, but it does in fact work. It's actually a biological response. And so from there, allowing it to go through you and not fighting with it means you will get through it faster and get on with what you really wanted to do. And that is the point. What did you really want to do? What do you really want your day? What will best serve you? Because that's really what it's all about. It's for you to enjoy your time, not be fighting with anxiety and have it preclude you or control you. Ignoring that it's going to happen and letting it just flow through you. Also knowing intellectually, no one's ever died from a panic attack. You may feel like you're going to, it's because you're fighting with it. Just let it go. Let it go, let it be, and let it flow. There's specific techniques to do that. By the way, I recommend the book Dare, D-A-R-E. It is written just a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. A gentleman out of, I believe, Scotland that turned around and wrote the book. And it is about anxiety, living and dealing with anxiety and all. And he provides several different techniques. And many, many people around the world, myself included, prescribe this or describe this to our clients and being able to suggest to them to read this book, understand their anxiety, learn to live with their anxiety, and understand that fighting it is not the way to go. All right. So these are things about anxiety and understanding that it is a part of you. It's the mirror to excitement, that you have certain controls, that you can in fact interpret certain things, interpret benign activities and decide how you want to respond to them. But if you have anxiety flowing through you, to not fight with it, to allow it to pass through, that you're not, in fact, going to have, you're not going to have a heart attack. You're not going to fall over unless you turn around and fight with it. For goodness sakes, don't fight with it. Just let it be and let it roll through. Accepting the fact that you have anxiety, and then you will ultimately diminish it, and it becomes less and less effective, less and less intrusive in your life, and empowering you to have a much better life. So, understanding when it comes to making change, we all have to understand what our culture is, what our belief systems are. I call it RBS. It's our belief system, it's our behavioral system, it's also our biological system, RBS. So, RBS controls our lives and how we look at things, see things, and perceive things. We use the PIT method, and that is that we practice intellectual, inspirational, and intuitive thinking with all of our questions. And at the same time, we also know that much of this is natural and interpretive, and we have a lot more influence on it than we ever thought. So there's your very first step in understanding how you make a transition within your life or a change within your life. And I look forward to getting with you again next Thursday when we move on to our next step in how to make real change in your life. By the way, my name is Rick Senninger. You're welcome to follow me on Facebook. You can turn around and I guess there's TikTok and there's Instagram. Love to hear your input. And of course, you can give us a call. I answer the phone. We talk to real people. You don't talk to bots. You don't talk to AI. You talk to a real person. You're not going to talk to an answering service. Give us a call. We'd love to hear your story. In the meantime, have yourself a great week and stay brilliant.